Hi, everybody. Welcome to our new episode with the Institute of Metaphysical Science. We are a nonprofit organization. You can go to our website at https://scientificmetaphysics.org and check out our programs. And if you want to provide some support, we're a nonprofit and we would love any support you would provide. So that helps us do what we do here. So today we have a fun conversation. You know, in life, when things shouldn't be that way. You look out in life and something happens and you go, that should not have happened. That shouldn't be that way. They shouldn't be like that. If only they were like this, right? If only I felt better, I shouldn't be sick, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So we have these perspectives sometimes in life where things shouldn't be that way. So Betty, there you are. Okay, good. So I'm just setting this up. So what's kind of the science viewpoint? Now, I would say that sometimes when things are really dire, they get our attention big time. Other times it's just kind of this low grade, well, I wish that hadn't been that way, or that shouldn't be this way, or whatever. So let's start talking about what does science have to say about that? Because I think with COVID, with all the stuff going on and all the different things that we have come up in our living, I think this comes up more than it doesn't, perhaps.
Well, it looks like we live and move and have being as two-legged animals with a million others or millions of others doing this and that and everything else. And we have all of our opinions and our judgments and our concerns about how it looks, how it feels, who does what and why and when, all of that. And we call that living. And what metaphysical science has to offer is the possibility, and we view it as fact, that we live and move and have being entirely mentally as consciousness. And what is true about our living is that we express that in feedback that tells us what we're believing and what we're thinking. And that feedback is called everyday human living. It's right. Our point of view on what's present.
Right. So the question I think that's before us is, how willing are you to have things be exactly the way they are and exactly the way they're not?
Most of us live within our opinion structure, and we are not willing to have them look certain ways.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. It's like this whole exploration. What we're going to start into here is a whole exploration of, are you willing, really?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, what you've got is you've got a problem. It looks this way, but you want it to look this way. And so what do? If it looks this way and it's bad enough looking this way and you want it to look this other way, well, you could take a pill. Maybe that would alleviate some symptoms. You know, you can go to the doctor if it's a health issue, right? So you start trying to fix and change the way things look. Because you know, whatever you do, you'll know if it works because it will look differently and more like the way it should look, right?
In your opinion.
In your opinion, that's right. Everything in this is your point of view.
Yep.
But the true power that we're going to talk about is being willing. How willing are you? So, say more about willing.
Okay. But first, I want to quote Einstein, who said that problems cannot be solved from within the parameters of the problem. So you have to step outside the box in which you have the problem to look at the possibilities available. Okay? Now, when you talk about willingness, it's like, are you willing to have it look just the way it looks? No, You're not. Well, suppose you could succeed in having it look different by being willing to just leave it alone. What would that look like?
Right. So that's the thing. So Mom, you're doing this a lot. So you're moving around, you're going back and forth like this, and it's making me dizzy.
You want me to sit still?
Yeah.
All right, I'll sit still.
So being willing would be, could you allow something to be the way it is with no requirement to have it be different?
Well, I have to tell you, I have learned that that is, in fact, a helpful undertaking.
Mm-hmm.
I also have to tell you that it isn't easy.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, if it were easy, everybody'd be doing it.
Right.
Right?
But the thing that has me continue to do it is the success rate in my life.
Yeah.
What is true is that the way I see it, my point of view, my language of human living called people, places, and things,
Mm-hmm.
all of that, feel, taste, touch, hear, see, all of that stuff. That's my language telling me what I believe is going on. And even though I've been a student for most of my life of scientific metaphysics, that human living business is right there 24/7 on this level of living. So, in the study of metaphysics, I have discovered that we really do live as consciousness self expressing. Without consciousness, nothing is going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, fundamental to all of our living is consciousness, which is mind in action. So, the God idea, I would call a lot of things besides the word God. I would call it mind. I would call it truth. I would call it love, capital L, not human beliefs about love, but they are certainly included. You wouldn't have the belief if you didn't have the reality. But the thing about the reality is that it's not seen, heard, or felt. It's a point of view on what's actually present, on reality present. And reality is always present.
Yeah.
Seen however you see it.
Right.
So if I can learn to just leave the picture, my point of view, alone, it's upsetting or it's not good or I don't approve of it or all those things I feel about it. I just say, yeah. Thank you for sharing. Now just leave it alone. Let's just go home to ourselves, for instance,
Right.
and say, what's really present is the God idea. Mind intelligently functioning, love, the awareness that only perfection is present, eternal life, etc. I could go on and on.
Right.
But if that's what's present, then my point of view really doesn't have a lot to do with what's going on.
Right.
It only has to do with the way I'm living it. Because my point of view, I'm stuck with.
Right.
And it shifts all the time.
Mm-hmm. So can you share your experience with the need for medical care or surgery? So if somebody is in need of medical care or surgery, what would be the metaphysical science point of view on that, given what we're talking about?
Well, the rule of thumb that I live with is the highest right under the circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be aware that we live and move and have being mentally,
Mm-hmm.
that we have the language showing up in our human living that is the highest right for us from one moment to the next.
Yeah.
And I haven't had too many instances of surgery, but I've had a couple. When something comes up and that looks like the only solution, you have to be willing to check that out. And in that willingness, you are aware that what's actually going on is reality, fully functioning, whole, perfect, complete, and reflectively, that constitutes your being. And if it looks like you need to go have an operation, fine, go have it. It'll be fine. You know, Margaret Laird used to use the expression, if you have God on your shoulder, whatever you do is going to be just fine. And that's in fact true. I've lived it many times.
Very good. So, how should we respond when someone calls and talks about a problem they're having?
Well, give me a specific.
I don't have a specific, it was a question that came in. So
I need to, it's like talk to me about the world.
right. Well, think of somebody who called you recently with a problem.
Well, it's hard to speak to a void, If somebody calls me and says they have a test to take and they're afraid of it, what can they do? Well, number one, man is the expression of God's being. And just think of that. God's being, whole, perfect, complete in every respect, joyous, free, reflectively, that constitutes my being.
Right.
So I have to trust that the intelligence needed to take any test or perform any job is present. And I become a listening for what next? What next? Knowing that everything is in place, everything is functioning perfectly, and I can walk right through. And I have done it many times.
Right.
But I just let go of my opinion about what I should do and how I should do it.
Yeah.
And it succeeds. So by now I have learned that the real answer to my problem is in leaving the picture alone, leaving my opinions alone. Betty is a great judgment thing. Leave her alone and just be present. Right. Reality is what's present, whole, perfect, complete, joyous, free, satisfied, fulfilled, you name it. It's a totality of perfection.
Right.
The foundation of being is perfect.
Yep. And if we look at what you said in your book, Mind is the Athlete, you said your own conscious thought, including your perceptions, declarations, and commitment, give rise to your human experience.
Exactly. And that's what I've just described.
Exactly. That's why I wanted to say that and follow that up. But absolutely. And then you go on to say, in proportion to our ability to leave the language alone, our experience of living will be less traumatic, less catastrophic.
Yep. And then I don't find fault with whatever comes up in my human living out of that living.
Right.
In other words, the operation went along fine. Everything was perfect. It's interesting. I did have an experience a couple of years back of a hip replacement. And they tell you all of the ins and outs of what goes on with that. And when I went, I said, well, would I have to stay overnight in the hospital? And they said, yes, one night. And I said, oh, I can go home the next day? Yes. And so I found out when I got there that is what they say, but almost nobody has that happen. And so when the operation was over and I was in a room in the hospital, my children came to visit me. I had said to the nurse, I get to go home tomorrow. And she said, we'll see. So I said, what does it depend on? And she says, well, you have to be able to get up and move around. You have to be able to take care of yourself, have to be able to walk. I said, okay. So they said, if you need anything, let me know. Well, when I needed something, I rang the bell. Nobody came. And so I got up and took care of it myself. And somebody came in the room and they said, what are you doing out of bed? And I said, well, I rang the buzzer and nobody came. Oh my, and they were very excited about all that. So anyway, I got back in bed, but I took care of the situation. So then they came and said, now we're going to see if you can walk from here to the door. And I said, well, yeah, sure. So they have a contraption they put around you so that you won't fall and go through all that stuff. Anyway, we walked to the door and back, and I said, no more, that's it. Just walk to the door. That'll be sufficient for today. I said, well, I'm going home tomorrow. And they said, we'll see. And I said, oh, okay. So anyway, the day went on, or the evening went on, and the next morning they came. We went for a walk, and she said, now we're going to see if we can walk around the nurse's station and then back into the room. Okay. So we did that. And so then the head nurse came in and said, you did that very well. I said, it was not a problem. And she said, well, the doctor will be here at 10:30 or something like that. And I said, okay, is he the one that checks me out? Can I go home then? And she said, we'll see. And, it went on that way forever. But anyway, he came. And I said, you told me I could go home one day, in one day. And he said, well, yeah. He said, it's possible. And I said, well, I'd like to go home. And he said, well, just a minute, let me check your chart. And he checked my chart. He said, I see that you walked around the nurse's station. It was very fine. I see that you can go to the bathroom by yourself. That was fine. He said, actually, you're eating normally. That's fine. He said, I don't see any reason why you can't go home. And I said, oh, good. So anyway, the children came and I was discharged and I went home. I was in the hospital one night. And when I went back to see him for a checkup 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, something like that, he told me that was a very unusual situation. Not many people can go home in one day. But he also was interested in the head nurse, who said this lady has something going on and she lives it. And she said, I've never seen anybody that lived what they said like that. So he said, it was impressive. He said, not everybody does what you did. So what I want you to know is that it simply is the willingness to let the picture look like it looks, do what it does, and you stay calmly, firmly aware that reality, not seen, heard, and felt, but a powerhouse, that reality constitutes your being. And anytime you're willing to let go of the Betty, the being that you are is present, functioning perfectly. Mm-hmm. Difficult.
Yeah, that made sense. That said it. And I would say that Mary Baker Eddy said we must leave the mortal basis of belief and unite with the one mind in order to change the notion of chance to the proper sense of God's unerring direction and thus bring out harmony.
Yeah.
And that's very similar to your experience walking through all of that.
Right.
And then she also went on to say, you're working out the problem of being in divine metaphysics. And in proportion as you understand the control which mind has over so-called matter, you will be able to demonstrate this control.
Yeah, and if she wrote that today, she would probably not use the word matter. She would use the word language or concepts, conceptual stuff. Everything that I see, I have a concept of.
Right.
I don't see what's really there. I see what I'm able to see, what I'm willing to see. So from a human point of view, a concept is simply a point of view.
Right. Yep. So that's the other, and it is like that. It is, and it gets us right back to what we were talking about willingness.
Yeah,
Being
I love.
willing to be in the hospital and to be yourself, to be willing to have it look however it looks, to be willing. Do you see what I'm saying? It's every step of the way.
Yep. And when I taught a class, I had fun with them because when I would ask them various questions and I'd say, "Are you willing?" And they'd say, "Yes, but." And so we began to look at what comes after the but. And I said, everything after the but gives you all the reasons why you're not willing.
Well, all the reasons why you're not happy.
Well, and you're not willing.
Yeah.
We're talking about willingness. It also works with happiness.
Right.
But really and truly, are you willing? And if you say, like I could say, are you willing to go to the beach? Yes, but it's wintertime. Well, I didn't ask that. Are you willing to go to the beach? Well, and I said, do you see that what comes after the but tells me what your unwillingness is all about? So you have to look hard at being willing. And being willing to leave that picture alone is a real discipline because we're so convinced that it is the way things are instead of just a point of view. We are convinced that that thing out there controls things. It tells me what I can do and what I can't do.
Yeah.
And that's all belief, not fact.
Right.
But we live in the world that we hold up as fact.
Yeah.
Whether it's true or not.
And I would say we have a quote, comment here from Kate Paps, says the willing sets you free.
Yes, if you're truly willing.
Yeah.
If there are no buts.
Right. So be willing. So then what gets in the way of being willing are our judgments, opinions, our wanting to be right about something.
Mm-hmm.
What else gets in the way of really being willing?
Preferences.
Preferences.
What I like and what I don't like. What I want and don't want.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that stuff. All the personal evaluation. The thing that locks you into believing that you're the two-legged thing walking down the street.
Right. And the more you struggle with that and you effort with that, the more catastrophic your results in your world could be.
Right.
Does that go with it? Or can you really say that at all? I mean, if you're willing to have life look however it looks, it can look catastrophic or it can look awesome, wonderful. And what difference? Well, isn't that where they say treat the two imposters just the same?
Yep. That was Kipling.
Okay.
Yep. In the picture of human living, the language world, I call it, that we each have, we have all kinds of stuff that we believe makes a difference in our life.
Yeah.
Makes us happy or makes us unhappy, makes us rich or makes us poor, makes us well or makes us sick, etc. All that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have all that going on. The thing that allows you to let that be and just take a longer look at the reality present that I'm not seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching, but is there, of which I have a concept. That reality is whole, perfect, complete, entire, satisfied, fulfilled, joyous, free. I could keep going.
Yeah.
That reality is the perfection that is being as the reflection of the God idea.
Yeah.
And it constitutes your being. So when you rely on that, then the picture shifts to fit the understanding that you are standing in at
Yeah.
that moment.
Right. And it could look like a miracle, one bump, like that fast.
Yep.
And
And,
all it is being willing.
and sometimes it looks like something that never would you have chosen in your human living, but it turns out in due time to be a blessing in your life.
Yeah.
And in that sense, it's kind of a miracle that you didn't expect and wouldn't have called a miracle at the time. But without it, you would never have gotten where you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, very good. Okay. Anything else on this? It shouldn't be that way. If anyone has any questions, please post your questions. We're happy to address them. There's one more that I want to post with you, which is, so when you have something in your life that is like, it could show up like a big impairment or grief and loss, same thing holds true?
Yep.
Yeah.
And when I look around at my human living and I see things like the pandemic, which in my world is a global threat, if I can call it that, I have to know that there is something about the quality of living that's being threatened. And I think, is my life being threatened? And I go right back to leaving that picture alone. I don't care what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
It will not touch me if I'm present to my source, which is the God idea, reflectively present as man.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing touches that.
Yeah. Yeah. Powerful beyond measure.
That's right. And it's secure and it's safe and it's perfect.
Yeah.
Now, that's kind of a thumbnail of what we study in metaphysical science.
Yes. So there's another question. Can you please let us know the books you're reading now? Because this way we can read along as well. Do you have any that you're reading right now? Or, what we've been doing is we've been looking at books that we've got, that we've read, that would be really, really great to bring into this conversation, like The Biology of Belief and The Tao of Physics with Fritjof Capra, Uncommon Wisdom, Talbot Monday, I Say Sunrise. But is there any books that come to mind that you're reading now that would be right on?
Well, if you're talking about textbooks for studying metaphysics, I would certainly recommend Margaret Laird's book, Christian Science Re-Explored. I would also recommend my book, Mind is the Athlete. Mm-hmm. I would also recommend Mary Baker Eddy's book, Science and Health, the Key to the Scriptures, and on and on. There are lots of people that have written wonderful books that give you a taste of being, a taste of freedom.
Yeah.
From the picture.
Right. And that freedom from the picture is the key. And sometimes it's a simple yet very hard thing. It's simple to say, are you willing? And to acknowledge the divinity present. And yet it's also one of the hardest steps that in certain cases you'll ever take.
It's very elusive.
Yeah.
But the thing I'm telling you all that about willingness is because we're, of course, willing. But, and I want you to know that's not willing.
Right.
The unwilling that comes after the but is greater than the willing.
Yeah.
And so you're not home free with that kind of willing. So you have to get to the point where you have no but. I am willing. And sometimes you have to be desperate. Sometimes you have to be right on the brink of disaster before you can be willing. Margaret used to say once in a while, give me a hand, God, I can't do a thing.
Right. Right.
You just, you get to the point where you think there's nothing I can do. It's just awful looking. It's awful. And you say, okay, I can do nothing. When you get to that point, then you're willing.
Yeah. Yeah, it worked that way for me when I was out of a job, way back in the day when I had like $43 in my bank account and I had gotten fired with no severance, nothing. And I went and every day I went and I would go, and this was years ago, and I'd get the classifieds and I'd circle and I'd make sure I'd go on one interview every day. I did everything that came up, literally everything, whether I wanted to or not, I would do everything that came up. And so I had gone on an interview and still didn't have enough experience, whatever, came home, got my mail, my car payment was in the mail, and I had $43, and this was going to be a $275 or $340 car payment or something. And I went upstairs and I thought, well, I don't know what to do, but I'm tired. So I took a nap. And about 45 minutes into my nap, my phone rang. And I picked up the phone, and it was the interview that I had that morning. And they actually said, when can you start? We would love to have you here at 1 o'clock today. Will that work? And I was like, you bet. And I went in, and that was it. And he cut me a check on Friday and gave me the check because he said, I figured you might need this. And that was my car payment. And I didn't do, I was just like, okay, I've done everything there is to do. I don't know what to do. I'm just going to go take a nap and maybe that will show up. So that was willing to have it look however it looked. I didn't take an issue with it all. I didn't worry about it. I just did what was there to do. And that's just another example of same way to live, being willing.
Yep. And that job interview thing was not what your career wishes would have outlined.
Right.
But it was a job that met today's need.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was great. And it was good money, and actually more than I had been paid at the job I got fired from. So it ended up being a win all the way around. But yeah, it's just being willing to have it look however that looks.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I wanted to say is, thank everybody for being here. And again, this is the Institute of Metaphysical Science, scientificmetaphysics.org. We have books and pamphlets, and there's a monthly open mic that anybody can join in and ask questions and participate in the conversation. That happens on the first Sunday of every month. We also have other teleseminars. We have books and recordings from our seminars and everything else available. So if this is something you want to explore more, you can definitely go out to our site at scientificmetaphysics.org and check it out. We're also a 501c3 organization, so any donations that you might want to make are fully tax deductible. All right, so thanks, Tom. And we will be here same time next week. Wednesday at 5 o'clock Pacific and 7 p.m. Central, and we hope to see you here. So thank you so much. Until then, take care and have a great, great week.